People will always show you who they are, if you're paying attention. You don't need to walk through life suspicious. You need to walk through life skilled. Reading people isn't a superpower, it's a skill. And like any skill, it gets sharper the more you train it. This isn't about labeling or judging people. This is about clarity. You read others so that you can protect yourself, mentally, emotionally, strategically. Because the truth is, most people don't get taken advantage of because they're weak. They get taken advantage of because they weren't paying attention to the signs that were right in front of them. It all starts with micro-expressions, those small flashes of emotion that slip through before someone has a chance to compose themselves. A flash of anger, a curl of contempt, a moment of fear. You can't fake those. You can't control them. And if you're trained to see them, they're like neon signs pointing to what someone's really feeling. Most people miss them because they're too focused on what's being said. But that's the mistake, because what's said is practiced. What's shown in the face is pure instinct. And speaking of what's being said, don't just listen to the words. Anyone can rehearse a script. You want to pay attention to how they speak. The tempo, the tone, the filler words. Are they rushing? Do they over-explain? Are they repeating themselves or saying things like, "to be honest," too often? That's a red flag. Because people who are grounded in truth don't need to convince you. They just speak. When someone's trying to sell you on something a little too hard, you need to ask yourself why. Now let's talk about inconsistencies. If you want to know who someone is, compare their words to their actions. Compare what they told you last week to what they're saying now. Are the details shifting? Are the timelines fuzzy? Are you constantly having to adjust your expectations? That's not miscommunication. That's manipulation. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is explaining away inconsistency because they want the story to be true, but your job isn't to want the truth, it's to see it. One of the most powerful indicators of character is how someone treats people with less power. Watch closely. How do they speak to the server, the assistant, the janitor? Do they still offer respect when there's nothing to gain? Because if someone only treats you well because you have value to them, that treatment is conditional. Real character shows when there's no spotlight, no reward. And let's be honest, your gut already knows more than you think. That feeling in your chest, that itch behind your thoughts, that's not paranoia. That's your pattern recognition system. It's your lived experience whispering to you. You've seen this before. Stay alert. Don't silence that voice just because it's inconvenient. You didn't build your instincts by accident. You earned them. Honor them. We all see red flags. The real question is, do you stop and look, or do you keep driving past them hoping they won't mean anything? That offhand comment, that cold stare, that joke that wasn't really a joke, those are warning signs. And the earlier you catch them, the less damage you take later. People don't go from kind to cruel overnight. They test your boundaries, inch by inch. And if you let the little things slide, you're training them on what you'll tolerate. Sometimes, the smartest thing you can do is say nothing, ask a question, then go silent. Most people are so uncomfortable with stillness, they'll start revealing things they never meant to. Silence is a pressure cooker, and when you know how to use it, it becomes one of your strongest tools. Let them fill the gaps. Let them show you who they really are when you stop leading the conversation. Let's be clear. This isn't about being cold. It's about being clear-eyed. And when you can read people with precision, you don't absorb their chaos. You don't get pulled into their manipulation. You stay grounded. You stay in control. Reading people is a skill, not a superpower. Reading people isn't about being suspicious or paranoid. It's about staying alert, being smart, and protecting your peace. This isn't a talent reserved for spies or interrogators. This is a muscle that anyone can build. And in today's world, if you're not paying attention, you'll pay the price. Every single person you meet gives you data through their tone, their timing, their reactions, their silences. The question is, are you trained to pick up on it? We've been taught to look at the surface, to focus on what someone says instead of what they show. But people rehearse their words. They manage their image. They tell you what they think you want to hear. Real information lives beneath that surface. It's in their facial expressions, their micro-reactions, their energy when they walk into the room. It's in that moment they pause, the slight hesitation, the flicker of something they didn't want you to catch. That's what reveals intention. And if you want to stop being fooled, stop being distracted by charm, and start being focused on consistency. The ability to read someone is the ability to protect yourself from harm, emotional, mental, financial. It's not about being cold or closed off. It's about being aware. Because when you're not aware, you absorb other people's dysfunction, their chaos, their manipulation. But when you see clearly, you stay centered, you move wisely, you know who's in front of you, and you act accordingly. That's power, not aggression, not control, just calm, unshakable, silent power. The kind that doesn't react to noise because it sees through it. So don't wait for someone to show you who they are the hard way. Train your mind to see it early, while you still have time to choose how close they get. Watch for micro-expressions. If you want to see someone's truth, stop waiting for their words to reveal it. People rehearse what they say, they shape it, they polish it. But their face, especially in that first split second, can't lie. That's where the truth lives. Micro-expressions are those brief, involuntary flashes of emotion that cross the face before someone has time to mask it. They're raw, they're real, and if you know how to spot them, they're one of the most powerful tools you'll ever have. In that half second, you'll see fear, anger, disgust, or even contempt before the smile appears, before the excuses come out, before the performance begins. You don't need to interrogate anyone to catch these signals. You just need to slow down and observe. Most people are so focused on what they want to say next, they miss everything. They're listening to respond, not to understand. They're watching for approval, not for accuracy. But if you train yourself to be still, to really look, not stare, but observe, you'll catch more in a moment than most people do in a year. The eyes narrow just slightly. The mouth pulls to one side. The brow tightens for a second. These aren't random. They're neurological responses triggered by real emotion. The body speaks even when the words are silent, especially when the words are silent. When someone's pretending to be okay but flashes fear the second you ask a tough question, pay attention. When someone tells you they're happy for you but their face leaks contempt before the smile shows up, don't dismiss that. That's not nothing. That's the mask slipping. Micro-expressions don't lie. They come from the emotional brain, not the thinking one. And by the time the thinking brain catches up to hide it, it's too late. The damage is done. You saw it. In high-pressure environments where the stakes are real, whether it's law enforcement, negotiations, or personal safety, this skill is non-negotiable because people will tell you what they think you want to hear. They'll hide their agenda behind charm or silence, but their face gives it away. That's why being emotionally intelligent isn't just about being kind. It's about being sharp. It's about seeing what most people ignore and trusting yourself enough to act on it. And this matters in your everyday life, in relationships, at work, with family. When someone makes a promise but flashes doubt, notice it. When someone tells you they're fine but their body tenses and their eyes say otherwise, don't just move on. You don't need to call them out, but you do need to log that moment. That's data. That's truth. We are constantly being trained to dismiss our instincts, to explain away what we saw because it was too quick or probably nothing. But the truth is, it was everything. That 1 second was more honest than an entire conversation. So don't rush. Don't overlook. Let people show you exactly who they are, because they always will. The question is, are you watching when it happens? Listen to how they speak, not just what they say. Most people are too focused on the words. They hang on to what someone says, hoping to find clarity or truth in the message. But the truth is rarely in the message. It's in the delivery. If you really want to understand someone, what they think, what they feel, what they're hiding, you need to stop focusing on what they say and start paying attention to how they say it. Because the voice will betray what the mouth is trying to conceal. When someone speaks, they give off more than words. Their tone, their speed, the pauses between thoughts, every one of these is a tell. And if you're sharp, you'll hear it. If they speak too fast, they're trying to get ahead of your doubt. If they hesitate before answering, that's not a pause, it's a calculation. If their voice goes up in pitch, if it cracks ever so slightly, if their breathing shifts mid-sentence, that's not random. That's their nervous system reacting before they've had a chance to control it. There's a huge difference between a confident answer and a rehearsed one. And if you listen closely, you can tell when someone's telling you what they believe versus what they want you to believe. The confident speaker doesn't try too hard. They speak in a steady tone. They don't feel the need to convince you. They just say what's true and let it stand. But the one who's hiding something, they over-justify. They repeat themselves. They over-explain or drop phrases like, "To be honest, trust me, I swear." Those fillers are red flags, because if someone is really being honest, they don't have to tell you. They just are. You also want to listen for tension in their voice. Tension means stress. Stress means there's something being concealed. Even if the words sound right, ask yourself, why is their voice tight? Why are they clearing their throat so often? Why are they stumbling through a sentence they should know by heart? You don't need to interrogate, just observe. Just register that something isn't aligning, because communication is never just verbal, it's emotional, physiological, and behavioral. And people always leak the truth through how they deliver it. This matters especially in moments where someone is trying to influence you, whether in a negotiation, an apology, or a promise. Are they taking up space confidently or flooding you with language? Are they avoiding direct answers and giving you vague statements instead? People who have something to hide will often dodge, deflect, or distract, but they do it with a rhythm. Once you recognize the rhythm of avoidance, you'll never unhear it again. Your job is not to accept everything at face value. Your job is to hear what's underneath. When you stop letting words hypnotize you and start tuning into tone, pace, and energy, the real message becomes clear. And once you can hear the truth behind the words, you won't just understand people better. You'll protect yourself from being misled, overpowered, or deceived. Pay attention to inconsistencies. If you want to protect yourself, start listening for the moments when things don't line up. Because here's the truth, when someone's lying, manipulating, or playing a role, they can only hold that act together for so long. Eventually, the cracks start to show. The timeline shifts. The details change. One story doesn't match the next. These inconsistencies aren't just mistakes, they're signals. But most people miss them because they're too busy giving others the benefit of the doubt. They want to believe the best, even when the evidence says otherwise. That's not loyalty, that's self-sabotage. Inconsistency is one of the clearest signs that someone isn't being fully honest, or worse, isn't being who they claim to be. Pay attention when their words say one thing, but their actions show another. They tell you they value trust, yet they hide their phone. They say they support you, yet they mock your goals. They act generous, but only when they know people are watching. These contradictions matter, and the more often you spot them, the faster you can make decisions that protect your peace. Now here's what usually happens. Someone shows you an inconsistency, and your instinct picks up on it right away. But instead of acting on that, you overthink it. You excuse it. You rationalize. You say things like, maybe they were just tired, or I'm probably overreacting. You convince yourself to overlook what your intuition just confirmed. And the longer you ignore these red flags, the more power you give away. It's not paranoia to question patterns that don't align. It's self-respect. You have to start treating inconsistency like data. When you hear one version of a story today and a different version next week, don't brush it off. Clock it. Log it. And don't confront it immediately either. Just observe. Let people keep talking. Let them keep revealing themselves. You don't need to force the truth out of anyone. You just need to give them enough time and space for the inconsistencies to reveal it on their own. Even the smallest shift matters. One word changed, one date adjusted, one name swapped out. It all counts. Because when people are telling the truth, they don't need to remember. The truth doesn't change. But when someone is building a version of reality to serve themselves, they have to keep editing it to fit the situation. And eventually, they lose track of the story they told last time. That's when the truth slips through. That's when you catch it, if you're paying attention. And this isn't just about catching liars. It's about recognizing when someone's not aligned with their own words. You're not looking for perfection, you're looking for integrity. Consistency isn't about being flawless, it's about being honest. If someone's story, values, and behavior all match up, that's someone you can trust. But the second you start seeing gaps, contradictions, or excuses that keep evolving, that's your sign. Don't ignore it. The people who protect their energy the best are the ones who trust what they observe more than what they're told. Notice how they treat people with less power. If you want to know who someone really is, watch how they behave when they think there's nothing to gain. Not when they're talking to you, when they're talking to the waiter, the janitor, the intern, the delivery driver. That's the moment their mask drops. That's when their true nature surfaces. Because anyone can perform kindness when they're being watched or when there's a benefit on the line. But the real measure of character is how someone treats the people they believe they don't need. We live in a world obsessed with appearances. People learn how to charm, how to impress, how to fake humility when it serves them. But when they're around someone with no power, no status, no influence, they show their core. The tone changes, the body language shifts, the fake smile fades. And that's the moment you need to watch closely. Not because it's dramatic, but because it's honest. It's quiet, subtle honesty that tells you more than any speech ever could. If someone shows respect only when it's convenient, that's not respect. It's strategy. If they only show up when there's attention or reward involved, they're not consistent. They're calculating. And you need to be able to tell the difference. Because if you're in any kind of relationship, personal, professional, emotional, with someone who disrespects others when they think it doesn't count, you're not safe either. It's just a matter of time before that same energy turns on you when you become less useful, less interesting, or less convenient. This is not about being judgmental. It's about being observant. You don't have to call them out. You don't have to make a scene. But you do need to take a mental note, because when someone laughs at someone trying their best, rolls their eyes at someone struggling, or acts superior to someone with less, it tells you everything you need to know. That's not a one-off. That's who they are. That's their baseline. And if you ignore that, you're giving your trust to a facade, not a foundation. You want to align yourself with people who are respectful when no one's watching, who treat every person with dignity, not because it's expected, but because it's who they are. The ones who help quietly, who listen attentively to those who can't offer them anything in return. Those are the people you can build with. Those are the people who won't turn on you when it's inconvenient. Because their integrity doesn't shift with status, so stop watching how they treat you. That's easy. You have something they want. Your time, your energy, your presence. Of course they'll be on their best behavior. That's not the test. The test is, how do they behave when there's no spotlight, when no one's taking notes? That's when the truth comes out. And once you see it, don't unsee it. That's your data. That's your protection. That's you reading people, not with suspicion, but with precision. Trust your gut. It's pattern recognition. There's a reason your gut speaks before your brain does. That instinct you feel in the pit of your stomach, the subtle tension in your shoulders, the way your breath shifts when someone walks into the room, that's not just emotion. That's your internal alarm system, built from every experience, every warning sign, every betrayal, every success you've ever lived through. It's your nervous system processing what your mind hasn't yet verbalized. And you need to stop dismissing it like it's something irrational or overly emotional. It's not magic, it's data, and it's trying to protect you. You've been picking up on patterns your entire life. You've seen what manipulation looks like. You've experienced what it feels like when someone's lying. On a cellular level, when something doesn't feel right. But because we're taught to be polite, to be agreeable, to avoid overreacting, we second-guess that signal. We override it. We say, maybe I'm imagining it, or I shouldn't jump to conclusions. But that instinct is rarely wrong. It's your built-in truth detector. And when you ignore it, you're cutting off one of the most powerful sources of self-protection you have. That gut feeling is just your subconscious recognizing familiar patterns faster than your conscious brain can process them. You don't always know why a person makes you uneasy, but your body does. You don't always understand why you feel drained after a conversation, but your system picked up on something. Microsignals, tone, tension, contradictions. It all registered, and your gut sent up a flare. But instead of listening, you reasoned it away. That's where most people go wrong. They choose logic over instinct, forgetting that instinct is just fast logic built from experience. Start treating your gut like a trusted advisor. When it whispers, don't shut it down. Get curious. Pay closer attention. Is the person in front of you giving off tension? Are their words not matching their energy? Are you trying too hard to believe them because the truth makes you uncomfortable? Ask yourself the hard questions. Your body will always nudge you before your mind is ready to accept it. That's not fear, it's awareness. In high-stakes situations, you don't always have time to gather evidence. You need to respond quickly, decisively. That's where this internal compass becomes priceless. The more you honor it, the sharper it gets. The more you ignore it, the quieter it becomes. And eventually, you'll find yourself caught in situations you could have avoided, if only you'd trusted what you felt instead of what you were told. Remember this: people can fake a lot. They can fake tone, they can fake behavior, they can fake words. But your nervous system will still react. It will feel the dissonance. It will catch the subtle off in someone's presence. You might not be able to explain it, but you'll feel it. And that feeling is often the first and only warning you'll get. So don't dismiss it, don't bury it, lean in. Because when your intuition speaks, it's not asking for permission, it's telling you the truth, whether you're ready to hear it or not. Don't ignore small red flags. Most people underestimate the power of small red flags because they seem insignificant in the moment. But the truth is, those tiny signals, those subtle shifts in behavior, those little words or gestures that don't sit right, they matter more than you think. They're not random or isolated. They're pieces of a puzzle, clues that point to patterns beneath the surface. And if you ignore them, you're inviting bigger problems to take root in your life. When someone makes a dismissive comment or a joke that cuts a little too deep or brushes off your feelings as if they don't matter, that's a red flag. It's not just about the words themselves, but the energy behind them. It's the tone, the timing, the repetition. If it happens once, maybe it's an off day. But if it starts happening repeatedly, that's not coincidence. That's intention. And the moment you start making excuses for those behaviors, you give permission for the boundary to be crossed again and again. People don't suddenly reveal their true colors in one explosive moment. Usually, it's a slow reveal. It's a drip, drip, drip of disrespect, manipulation, or neglect. They test your boundaries quietly at first, in small ways, to see how much they can get away with. And most people let those little signs slide because they want to avoid conflict, or they convince themselves it's not a big deal. But those small flags are warnings. They're the early alarms before the storm hits. You have to learn to listen to those quiet signals inside you that say, something's off. When you feel a discomfort that doesn't make sense logically, don't dismiss it as paranoia or overthinking. That feeling is your emotional intelligence kicking in. It's your experience telling you to pay attention. Train yourself to recognize those subtle signs, the eye roll when you speak, the sigh when you ask for help, the quick change of subject when you bring up a sensitive topic. They're all data points. And here's the thing. Once you start acknowledging the small red flags, you'll start seeing the bigger picture much clearer. You'll stop being caught off guard by the major betrayals because you've already noticed the minor ones. You'll build a mental file on people, not to judge or punish, but to protect yourself. You'll develop a radar for who deserves your time and energy and who doesn't. Most importantly, don't confuse small red flags with imperfections. Nobody is perfect. People slip up. But a red flag is a repeated behavior that signals disrespect, manipulation, or a lack of empathy. It's a consistent pattern, not a one-time mistake. Once you learn to identify these early and trust yourself enough to take them seriously, you become emotionally untouchable. You build a shield around yourself that lets you engage with people clearly and confidently, without being blindsided by their hidden agendas. So stop ignoring those little signals. Start recording them, valuing them, and acting on them. The more you pay attention to small red flags, the less power others will have over you. It's the difference between being a victim of circumstance and being the author of your own story. Your awareness is your armor, and it all begins with noticing what most people overlook. The more you sharpen your ability to observe, the less you will absorb. Every moment you spend paying attention is a moment you are protecting your mental and emotional space. The world is full of distractions, illusions, and people who want something from you, whether it's your time, your trust, or your energy. But you don't have to be an easy target. The power to protect yourself lies in your awareness. When you train yourself to truly see and hear what's happening beneath the surface, you reclaim control over your life. Think about it. How often have you let someone's charm, smooth words, or carefully crafted image fool you? That stops now. Being able to read people isn't about suspicion. It's about skill. It's about being so attuned to the signals, the micro-expressions, the tone shifts, the inconsistencies, and the small red flags that you don't have to waste time second-guessing or doubting your own instincts. When you practice this skill, you become emotionally untouchable because you don't get blindsided by surprises. You see the signs early and act before damage is done. This is more than just self-defense. It's a form of respect you owe yourself. Respect for your time, your energy, your peace of mind. When you understand how to read others, you don't just protect yourself from manipulation and deceit. You elevate every relationship in your life. You build connections with people who are authentic and aligned with your values. You steer clear of those who drain you, disrespect you, or try to use you. Every interaction becomes a data point. Every glance, every pause, every shift in tone teaches you something. The world doesn't have to be a battlefield where you constantly defend yourself. Instead, it becomes a place where you walk with confidence, knowing you're in control because you're aware. Awareness is your armor. Awareness is your power. And this power isn't something you're born with. It's something you cultivate. It takes practice to notice the small signals, to trust your intuition, to see beyond the surface and read the invisible currents running beneath every conversation. But the payoff is worth it. With every moment you invest in training your awareness, you build resilience. You become someone who is not easily shaken, not easily deceived, someone who moves through life with clear eyes and a steady heart. So start today. Start watching more, listening deeper, trusting that inner voice that warns you when something doesn't feel right. The more you observe, the sharper you become. The less you absorb negativity, manipulation, or emotional damage. Because when you're truly present and skilled at reading people, you no longer have to wonder about their intentions. You already know. And knowing is freedom. Stay sharp, stay grounded, and never let anyone play you again.